how would they stop congressmen from becoming lobbyists?
Well, one thing they do, and they build loopholes into it, but one thing they can do is they can basically say, once you're a congressman, you can't be a lobbyist for 5 years.
For 5 years?
Yeah, or whatever the time is. But the more fundamental fact is, if you change the way you fund campaigns, if it was no longer the lobbyists who are kind of channeling the money in or that were getting their clients to channel the money in, then it's not like there wouldn't be lobbyists anymore. They just wouldn't be so well paid. They wouldn't be as valuable. And if they're not as valuable, it's not as valuable for them to pay the congressman an incredible amount of money to become lobbyists. They would become almost like, lawyers, policy wonks that kind of go to Capitol Hill and say, here's what will happen if you adopt this legislation. That's an important part of the process. But they wouldn't be the machers in the system. They wouldn't be the people who called the shots. And so the value of their services would fall. And if the value of their services fell, then it wouldn't make so much sense to go and become a lobbyist. Maybe you'd come home and be a doctor again, or come home and be a business person again, or do whatever you want back in your district. So I think if you change the way you fund campaigns, you would change 70% of the problem. You would just fix it right then. And these other things are good additions, but not as critical. But without changing the way you fund campaigns, I think all of these other changes are irrelevant. They just can't get over the money.
You always hear the phrase, take money out of politics. It's a constant phrase, but that's not really possible.
No, and I don't think it's really good. The point isn't to get money out. The point is to get money that doesn't represent a tiny fraction of the special interests controlling how Congress people think. So I think today a congressman from California, Ro Khanna, is going to introduce a bill that he hopes will be eventually part of whatever this big reform package is that would create a way of funding campaigns where everybody gets a voucher or a set of vouchers. So Seattle has done this for city elections where everybody gets 4 $25 vouchers that are only usable to fund campaigns. So a candidate comes around and tries to persuade you to give him or her the voucher, and then they take that voucher and they use it to fund campaigns. Okay, if Ro Khanna's bill passed and everybody had vouchers to use to fund congressional campaigns, and the idea is basically you take the rebate of the first $50 of your taxes, which every American pays at least $50 to the federal government. You take that first $50, you give it back, and you give it in the form of a voucher, and you say, take this voucher and help fund campaigns with it. Congressmen would still be raising money. They'd still be spending a large time raising money, but they wouldn't be raising money from the tiny fraction of the 1%. They'd be raising money from everybody. And so the point is that you would be using that money to spread the influence in the way that a democracy is supposed to, spread the influence to every American as opposed to the influence in a tiny, tiny fraction of the 1%. So that wouldn't get less money. I think that could be more money in the system, but it wouldn't be corrupting money because it would be money that is democratically accountable.